I'm here today to remind you that mankind is fallen. I'm here to remind you that even if we'd like to think it, we aren't perfect. Most of you probably have already accepted the fact that you aren't perfect and have done so almost indifferently. But even if we matter-of-factly acknowledge that we aren't inherently good, we do nothing about it. All of us are guilty of sinning. But there are some sins that can be avoided and aren't. The worst of these is the sin of judging a person's worth by the color of their skin, the sin of racism. Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream for an America where the Negroes weren't shunned and put away because of the color of their skin. He had a dream for an America where everyone was treated equally because of their shared humanity, not because of their skin color. In 1963, when Martin Luther King Jr. gave his I Have a Dream speech in Washington, D.C., the heartbreaking truth was apparent wherever you went. The despicable treatment of the blacks by the whites was, if possible, more appalling in 1963 because not only were they treating the Negroes as less than whites, but they broke a promise at the same time. They promised to give blacks the same rights and freedoms as everyone else, and then turned around and did just the opposite. Many politicians today are unjustly labeled as racist because of a comment or a word spoken at the wrong time to the wrong people. Because we are so focused on keeping the blame as far away from ourselves as possible, we've lost sight of the key issue. Our politicians might not be racist, but we are. Now, this might sound harsh to you, but it's not. Think about it. Have you ever been walking down the line of cash registers at a grocery store and chosen the one with a regular person behind it when the register being run by an African American woman had a much shorter line? I know that I have. It might be that we could justify our treatment of these people by saying that we fear the unknown, or that we aren't sure how to act. But why should we be unsure of ourselves? They're American citizens just like us, and as Christians it shouldn't matter in the first place. As shameful as it is, our subconscious is trained in racism. My little brother, whom we adopted as an infant, is an African American, and although he leads a rather sheltered life right now, it is inevitable that he will encounter the ugliness of racism at some point in his life. It saddens me to know this. America has stood as a symbol of freedom and happiness for over 200 years, and yet we are still plagued by the ugliness of racism. How can this be? Are we stubborn enough to still refuse to remove the plank from our own eyes before judging the color of our neighbor's skin? Of course, if you think about it very much, this makes sense. We are sinful, fallen humans, and by nature, we don't try to alter our behavior without some sort of outside pressure. So we allow racism to permeate our schools, our places of work, and even our homes. But it does not have to be this way. We do not need to be subconsciously slighting those who don't look like us. We don't need to lapse back into the cruelty and prejudice of the 1960s. If we only concentrate on things that affect our families and friends, we are not living out our divine commission. And to ignore or forget the issue of racism is to dismiss the plight of our fellow man. As Christians especially, we cannot ignore this. We allow racism to seep into our schools, and often our homes, even if we don't realize it. Judging the worth of a person based on the color of their skin is not only morally wrong, it's impractical. If an employer turns away a worker because he's African American and hires another man in his place because this man is white, he may have lost a valuable asset to his business. The black man might have had a better set of skills or a more stable life than the white employee. But because of his subconscious racism, the employer overlooked the black man's obvious skill and saw only his skin color. But we are warriors of the faith. We can eliminate the social crimes of our society if we just work at it. Step by step, our spiritual army can forge ahead through the immoral and unjust ranks of our culture. Every time we stand up against racism and refuse to allow our children, our co-workers, and our friends to be put down and belittled because of something that isn't theirs to change, we advance a little further through the enemy's ranks. It is possible to have a world without the horrors of racism, We can destroy the gross discrimination in our schools, and we can live out our divine commission to the utmost. In the 1960s, America was a place of racial prejudice and hate. In 2012, we don't need to be a place full of cruel discrimination. Instead, we can be a nation that is truly a symbol of great freedom and happiness.